provide a vessel that needs to carry 100,000 tons of crude to Rotterdam. So we sell now on a CIF basis rather than selling on an FOB basis, where the owner of the cargo or the charterer, supposed charterer, is now determining the kind of vessel he uses.
Let's look at government policies. In what way or ways do you think these have been able to shape the developments in the maritime sector?
Well, the policies basically, I think they're in conflict, because when you look at a policy that sits with an agency like the Maritime Administration, which says that you must encourage indigenous shipping, and therefore they are trying as much as possible to promote indigenous shipping. And on the right-hand side, you have a policy which the NNPC has. The NNPC charter says you can only sell FOB. So NNPC says, well, I'm sorry, my law says I can only sell FOB. Whereas you have the Maritime Administration policy that says you must encourage indigenous capacity. So this guy is saying you must give me the cargo, and the other guy said I can't give you the cargo because my law says I'm not allowed to do that. So what is happening is that the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. So we need to get to a position where we need to drive policies which are national in nature rather than sectoral. You know, NNPC are saying, well, we cannot guarantee our product. I mean, what we're saying is that we're going to give you the vessel. Whatever terms an international ship owner is offering you, we're saying that the Nigerian ship owners can offer exactly the same term. A vessel is a vessel. So we can offer the same term. Trading or trading and terms of charter parties are international. They're not local. So you cannot use the excuse of excluding the Nigerian ship owners based on the fact that you say Nigerian ship owners do not have capacity. How can Nigeria have capacity when it does not have the cargo? So the policy, the issue is that government needs to sit down and determine. You know, one of the issues I raise is that on an annual basis, there's what they call a budgeting process. The budgeting process tells us that next year government is going to be buying so and so. So government has a list of what they need to do in the year coming. Like in 2014, we're going to get a budget. And in that budget, government has planned that we're going to export so and so amount of crude, we're going to export so and so amount of gas, we're going to import so and so amount of rice has been expected, because they've worked out a taxation policy based on the input they're going to get. So all we're saying is that the information on what you have, which is on your national planning level, should be made available to Nigerian shippers. So the Nigerian shippers can use that as a basis to begin to plan, because Nigeria has a 5-year rolling plan. So a ship owner can say, well, I know for the next 5 years, Nigeria is going to be exporting so much amount of crude, so much amount of gas and everything else. So on the basis of that, I can plan to buy a big vessel to carry this product. So that is what government needs to do. Government needs to be looking at a long term, because a banker wants to see a long-term plan on how you're going to repay the purchase of a vessel. Which government has that policy? Because no government plans on an annual basis. Government plans on a long term. And what we need to do is to tap into that information which government has to be able to plan for long term.
How do you think that Nigeria can actually increase the level of indigenous participation in the maritime sector? And I know that this has to do with the Cabotage law.
Well, first of all, I would always say that I find the Cabotage Act to be a very novel act, because I've had enough time in the last 2 years to really study it and to review the act in the way it was created. And I think it has been an excellent act in the sense that it does cover quite a bit. But I think the challenge has been the issue of implementation. And really you cannot blame the maritime administrators for lack of implementing of Cabotage Act. Because first of all, we go back to the same issue, cargo. Who controls the cargo? The cargo that really is going to help the Cabotage Act, if you look at it, it's more of the petroleum products. Now, if the guys who are in charge of the products do not have, are not on the same mindset with the ship owners, then really you don't have that. Now, when you talk about issue of international ship owners and local ship owners, I have a very funny attitude when it comes to cabotage, because I believe in international trade, I believe in international sale, but I believe there should be also protectionist policy for indigenous capacity. Because the issue why I have that is that the moment Nigeria the supply curve in Nigeria becomes excess over the demand, we need to look for somewhere else to push our markets, which is what is happening in other parts of the world. Other parts of the world have exhausted their supply curve, so what they're doing, they're pushing out their vessels to Nigeria, which is not taking advantage of actually keeping them out. So my own challenge is that I always prefer an issue of more of administrative enforcement, because you cannot naturally deal without the international ship owners, because really, if you want to build a vessel, we don't have the capacity to build a vessel. I mean, we need to rely on the Americans, the Chinese, the South Koreans, and everybody for the vessel construction. So we still need to have a. So we cannot. But all we are asking for is that if Nigerians could even begin to take 20, 30, 40% of the trade, that in itself has a ripple effect, you know, on the economy, because shipping has a lot to do. Shipping has a trickle-down effect on manpower development, on infrastructure development. The moment we start buying vessels, we can begin to develop ship repair yards, because you know, if you buy a car, you need a mechanic. So it's only when we buy the vessel we can do that. But now that we don't have the vessel, what's happening? A lot of these subsets of the industry is being taken to other West African countries. People are taking their vessels to South Africa, to Ghana, or other places for repairs, because we have not been able to deal that. And even if we did have that, we don't have the manpower to begin to take care of that. So I don't fight international ship owners, because you need them, because shipping is very technical.
In terms of capacity in manpower development, how or where do you think we are at the moment?
Well, manpower is very key in the shipping industry, and the shipping industry is an industry, because we don't hear of so many accidents in the shipping, people seem to push it into the background. Manpower, the shipping industry is driven by very strict conventions on manpower development. And the challenge you face is that you have the issue of manpower development. Many a country has actually used manpower development to actually boost their economy. I mean, everybody knows about the Philippines. Philippines, basically, they just rely on manpower development, and they're getting revenue back in. Revenue sent back by seafarers is in the region of $25 billion a year. That is money being taken from another economy, being put back into the Philippines economy. Indonesia, which we didn't know anything about, has begun to work on manpower development. And right now, Indonesia is moving $5 billion back into the economy. Right now, from the statistics I got over last week in South Africa, was that there's a shortfall of 250,000 seafarers required worldwide. And that needs to be filled. That is something that needs to be filled. But you see, seafaring is not just going to school. In shipping, you have to get the certificate of competency. And for you to get certificate of competency, you have to be on board a vessel. So if we don't have Nigerian flag vessels or indigenously African flag vessels to put our seafarers on board, then they will not get their practical experience. It's like IT. You go to school, you need to do IT. That's what shipping is. COC is the IT of shipping, so you have to get that.
In the course of this conversation, you mentioned that we need to have a borderless Africa. Now, how do you think that is going to impact on us in terms of the shipping industry?
Well, last week I was fortunate enough to be invited to South Africa to give a keynote address in one of these Maritime Administrators Conference, a ship owners conference. And one of the things which is being looked at is that we're being shortchanged in Africa. The reason why I say so is that a lot of goods are being shipped out. Large vessels are coming to Africa to pick up cargoes. And then those same large vessels are being carrying goods out. And also container vessels are coming in. And what we are proposing as Africans is to say, look, why don't we create hubs? Let's have, in South Africa, we have one big hub. In East Africa, we have a big hub. In West and Central Africa, we have a big hub. So what happens that these large vessels, whether they're carrying their bulk carriers, their whatever, they come in and they dump in one place. Only from there can African vessels begin to do the sub-leg movement, which means, let's say we have a hub in Nigeria. I mean, I'm being hypothetical right now, but that's not, I don't know whether that's been considered. So what happens now, all the goods comes in here, whether it's petroleum products, whether it's whatever, then it is then smaller African flag vessels. So let's say in Guinea-Conakry, they move a lot of bauxite. So what happens now, we use African vessels, 50,000 tonners, move it to this hub, and then it is only from there that the larger foreign flag vessels can come. Now, once we've been able to develop our smaller regional movement, then we can begin to start thinking about how we can begin to move the bigger cargoes. But definitely there's no way we can begin to step into that playing field without us actually having a bit of control, because you have to have the management, the operational, the commercial, the technical. Those are aspects we need to get the grasp of first before we begin to step into the international play.
If we're going to have a borderless Africa, how do we secure our borders? Because the issue of piracy is taking another dimension, not just in Somalia now. Even though there was a report recently that some crew members were actually captured off the coast of West Africa, which Nigeria actually belongs to. How do we tackle this?